Ed Welch, he wrote probably the best and most thorough book on depression out here. It's called Depression, Looking Up from the Stubborn Darkness. It's a terrible, depressing cover. But anyway, I want to read to you what he says in it. God himself is a cause of suffering. We say that God allows suffering, and sometimes Scripture uses that language. But biblical authors were absolutely persuaded that God was the one true sovereign creator God. They could not imagine a world in which God was not enthroned. Nothing happens apart from his sovereign oversight, including our suffering. And then he quotes a couple Bible verses. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts. I, the Lord, form the light and create darkness. The word's actually evil in the Hebrew there. I bring prosperity and create disaster. The Lord, I, the Lord, do all of these things. God is over all things, and nothing happens apart from his knowledge and will. By the time suffering or depression comes to our doorstep, God did it. To believe anything else is to opt for a universe that is random and out of control, without a guiding hand, bringing all things to a purposeful and awe-inspiring conclusion. Ed Welch from Christian Counseling Education Foundation. Now I know what just said and read is a big, huge, giant pill to swallow. I hear you. I hear the objection. I hear you saying, Dwayne, are you really going to look at one of your fellow pastors, one of your best friends, the guy who your kids are willed to, say, James, your brother Jeremy, ultimately, it was according to the foreordained will and plan of God that he was shot in the back. Would I say that? Could I say that? Yeah. I say it with tears. But I would add this. His death was not meaningless. His death mattered. It mattered somehow in the pain and the suffering of all that you've gone through and all that his wife Sarah and the kids have gone through. Somehow in all of that, God is doing something glorious. He is doing something that can only be accomplished in and through that terribly horrific event. You see, people can kind of like quip and just throw it out and say, oh, everything just happens for a reason. But no, you don't get to say that if you don't believe that God is not sovereign, that he's sovereign. You've got to believe that, otherwise you don't get to say that. You don't believe that God is sovereign and powerful over all and that he has good purposes and designs and everything, then you don't get to say that. That's not your line. I can say that because I believe deep in my heart that God is and that he rules and he reigns on high. I can say that because when we lost 2 children after our first was born, my wife and I, we sat on the couch and together and we just cried. The Lord gives. The Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Here's why I can say that, why I can believe that. Romans 8:31-32. What shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He, God, who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not graciously give us all things? He didn't spare his own son. He had him brutally and horrifically crucified. Isaiah 53, here's another reason I can say it. God says, it was the will of the Lord to crush him. It was God's will to crush him. He strung his own son's back up on a cross had nails driven into him and had a spear thrust into his side and had him put in a grave. God did that. God could do that for his own son so that hundreds and thousands of people might be forgiven of sin, that they might be cleansed and be made new, and that they might be brought into eternal joy and salvation. If God did that, then I could believe that he's at work in my suffering. That he is at work in the most horrific things that we face. That he is at work in the valley in order to bring us through. God's sovereign control and purpose is our lifeline. That's our lifeline. It's what enables us to be able to say along with Job in the Bible, we sang it today, though he slay me, I will yet trust in him. It's what enables us to affirm the words of Romans 8 and 28, that for those who love God and are called according to his purpose, that he works all things together for good. You see, looking at Jesus is not easy. What do we see when we look at Jesus? We see a person on a cross suffer. Please hear the sweet truth in it. Oh, he was a man of sorrow. Oh, for us, Isaiah 53 verse 4 says, surely he bore our grief and our sorrows. Surely he bore them. See, listen. In Jesus, we do not have a God who doesn't know what it's like. He knows what it's like to suffer. He knows what you feel. He knows what you go through because he's been there. He's suffered much. He's been through it. And because he has, then we can be confident that he will be with us in the midst of our suffering and our depression and our tears, that he weeps with us and for us. He did it to carry us through our grief. He doesn't delight in it. Lamentations 3, verse 33 says, he does not willingly afflict or grieve the children of men. But it's like the cross, that God sometimes does that which he truly hates because it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it because of what it accomplishes in us. Here's how the Bible explains it. One last main verse for us today. 2 Corinthians 4. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not driven to despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be manifested in our bodies. So we do not lose heart, for this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. In the grand scheme of history and of time, of eternity, it's a momentary affliction. The day, there'll be a day when the hour of your suffering, you'll look back on it and it'll be a small little window of time. But what it's doing in us is it's preparing a glory that's beyond all comparison. God is purifying us. He's sanctifying us. He's making us like Jesus. I mean, he's weeding out sin and unbelief. He's deepening our confidence and our trust in him, our dependence on him. It's in and through the sufferings where God does wonderful things. I mean, nobody says like, oh man, I just learned and grew so much when everything was just humming along so smoothly. No, I mean, none of the fruits of the Spirit, none of them happen without hard things. Happen in Eve. It's in the dark, it's in the difficult times where we really grow. And look, none of us would ever ask God to do these things to us, which we need. I mean, I've never heard anyone pray. I don't think anyone would ever pray, but like, oh God, I think I really want to go through the valley of darkness. God, would you really just make something horrible happen to me? Like, I want something really bad to happen. To sanctify me. Yeah. Don't pray like that. We never pray that. But God in his infinite wisdom, knows what is good and best for us. Sometimes what may look like cruelty is his kindness.